Oh shit.
Yo, what is good, YouTube? We are back with another F1 2020 video, and this time we got what is now honestly one of my favorite tracks, Japan, Suzuka, the holy grail of the season, if I'm being honest with you. Before this race, I really just neglected this track. Even though I loved this track on GT Sport, I loved hitting it with like a Porsche 911 or a Grid 2 or a Group 2 car, whatever the situation may be. This race always came up on the multiplayer rotation if you guys play GT Sport. So it was always my favorite on GT Sport, but for some reason on this game I just neglected to ever play it or practice it. So coming into this league race and being able to finally practice this, it was so fun, and it made me realize that this is still probably one of my favorite tracks just in general. Just it doesn't matter the car, I feel like this is my favorite track to drive on. But getting into quali, we actually had provisional pole at one point, and during this lap you can see we are up on our delta by about 2 or 3 tenths. And going into 130R, I was really thinking like, damn, I could get pole. I could really get pole. I believe we set a purple middle sector by almost over a tenth, and Groovy is actually right there. I believe he just messed up. And going into the final chicane, I went in so cautious. I turned in too early for both of those attempts. So instead of getting pole, we end up finishing in P3, but Milky ended up getting a grid place penalty during either quali or practice. I can't remember what he did. I think he hit a bot. I don't know what happened. Kind of unfortunate for him. But going into this race, I was scared but confident. It was a weird thing because this pace, I'd never done a league race on this track, and my pace was almost unfounded for me. I didn't know that I was going to be able to do that well in a quali situation. So I came in with kind of just a lot of confidence, but also knowing that I could bin it any time. This is such a dangerous track, and this is such a hard track to be able to really get your bearings. You don't have time to get used to the heavy fuel. Like, you really got to be on it. So getting into this start, luckily we don't have a glitch start. Thank God we didn't have a glitch start. No BS. 5 lights, we're away. We get a decent start. I really wanted to get Gelfie off the line. That was like my main thing, but I think he really did have the grippier side of the track, and he goes into turn 1 in first place. So we're gonna settle in behind him, just follow, see what we can do, get used to the track on this heavy fuel load, and really just try to do our best not to bin it. So as you can see, things are pretty tentative. People are kind of cautious right now. Groovy, however, has already gotten into 3rd place. I can't remember. I think actually no, sorry, he started in 3rd place. I'm getting my races mixed up because we just had a race yesterday. So I don't know how that right there was not a warning, but luckily we get away with it, and we're gonna continue on. We're only about a half second behind Gelfie, and it feels like through the corners I'm much faster than him. I don't have to brake as much as he does, and I felt very good going into this after this lap 1. Obviously Groovy still being behind us, and one of the new additions to the league, Biohazard, also in 4th place. So we're all very close. 4 people within a second, 5 people within a second and a half. So very tight-knit racing, and it's another reason why this is just one of my favorite tracks, because it's super difficult, but it can provide some really good racing, as you guys will see through the course of this video, as I almost go into the back of Gelfie, and that's gonna really set me up to possibly get overtaken. Luckily nothing really comes of it. Groovy is a little bit too far behind. We just pop on a little bit of ERS. Didn't want to do that, of course, but track position is pretty important. It's not the most important thing on this track, but track position obviously is going to still be a big key. And skipping forward into lap 3, we start to fall back a little bit. Gelfie's starting to gain a little bit. He's about 8 tenths ahead, and we're starting to submit to the pressure of Groovy right behind us, who is the league leader. And going into the hairpin, we're having struggles with our braking zones, and we're going to be put under even more pressure by Groovy. And you can see I'm getting spammed with messages. I hate that, but I promise you I'm going to turn those notifications off before the next race, which isn't going to be USA. It'll be Abu Dhabi? Mexico. But anyway, getting back into this, Groovy is going to go side by side with us going into 130R, and this is going to be a tight one. We're going to keep it side by side, making no contact. Going into the final chicane, we're going to try to outbrake him, but we just go in a little deep. I think we made a tiny bit of contact, but nonetheless, it was clean. It was just not great racing on my end. Groovy's going to get an easy overtake. I try to kind of scare him with a little bit of a brush, but he still gets past us with ease. So, not the best start. Obviously, we were able to stick within Gelfie's DRS, but it's felt like once lap 4 hit, I was just making simple mistakes. Groovy turned on his afterburners and really started to push me into making those mistakes, and he got the move off. And again, just we lose another position due to making just the smallest of mistakes, and that's Japan. And when you're racing people that are similar pace, that's just what's gonna happen. So the top 5 did have a nice little gap. You can see a 2-second gap behind Milky, so we've got a little bit of a margin for error. We're still about within a 2-second gap, or maybe about 3 or 4-second gap of the league leader, but you can see ahead of us, Groovy is starting to catch Gelfie. He's right on his tail, and just seeing that, I knew I had to get past Azure as soon as possible. So after following him for 2 laps, we absolutely send it into turn 1. It puts us off the track a little bit, and you see in front of us, Groovy has also gone off at the same time. His was much more detrimental. He hit the grass, I hit cement, luckily, and somehow we've managed to make our way back into P2 with the lucky turn of events, as we still struggle taking that turn flat out. This was a very, very hectic race. Hard to stay in the moment because you always had people behind us. But as you guys see, heading into lap 9, you see Gelfie goes into the pits, and we are going to try not to get undercut, and if not, possibly try to get a little bit of an overcut on him. So, heading into lap 9, we're going to try and push, putting it on Rich when we can, throwing on the ERS when we can. You guys seen that we were about 2.3 seconds behind Gelfie when he entered the pits. So we're going to stay on board for this lap, see if we can make up any time going into this pit window, because obviously on a track like this, although we won't have traffic, it'll still be very nice to be able to come out of the pits and be relatively close, because on those hard tires we're gonna try to obviously save them a little bit for the last few laps, but right out of the pits we're gonna be pushing, trying to get those hard tires warmed up to our liking. So having a decent in lap, I should say. It's not the greatest. We're still setting reds, but that's kind of expected on worn softs. When you're going from a soft to a hard like you do in Japan, that is the main strategy. That is the prime strategy. It's relatively easy to still defend the undercut. Even though your tires are worn, being on these softs for almost 9 laps, 10 laps sometimes, you can still definitely push a little bit more than a cold pair of hard tires. So coming into the pits, put in the hards, we don't get held, no mistakes, and you can see Gelfie just passes us, and that is exactly what we wanted. So if we wouldn't have booched this first turn coming out of the pits, we definitely would have been even closer. I would probably say about 1.7 seconds, but nonetheless, keeping it under 2 seconds is very big. So lap 11, you notice we are starting to close in on this gap, and in front of us, Thunder actually has an incident going into the S's, and we're gonna get caught behind him a little bit, and that is actually gonna cause us to get our first penalty of this race. looking back on it, I definitely didn't need to go that narrow, but I was feeling like I was actually possibly going into the back of him, and I think he might have possibly had damage at this point, so I really just didn't want to risk it, and I guess I took the penalty instead. Nonetheless, no damage, and he's gonna let us get past going into the last section of the lap. So we're still 1.2 seconds behind. We're not in a bad place, and just as I said before, we really started to notice that we just had a pace advantage, and I don't know where it came from, but especially once we got on the hard tires, I felt like I had the best pace of anybody, or at least the best consistency. So it just felt like maybe one more lap and I would have been past Gelfie, but who really knows. Going into this turn, we continue to just follow Gelfie, stay on his rear, and you can see now in the top left hand corner, we're gonna start catching ladies at a very, very rapid pace, and exiting out of the hairpin, you guys will really see that 3 seconds becomes 1 second. And later on, we found out that this is because of a puncture, and obviously punctures can be very very unpredictable. As you see, we make basically race ending contact, and I would have got up in the air about it, but I just looking back at it genuinely gives me so much pain. Like, I called this track Japan after this, and it really was, because yeah, as I said, I think we had every chance to win this race. I think it was my race to lose, and for the race to really go in the gutter for a mistake just not caused by you, or not really even having anything to do with you, is definitely one of the worst feelings. It just felt like I'd practiced so much for this track, and I was having so much fun, and to have it kind of, you know, stripped away, obviously it was a very, very depressing, very saddening thing. But moving forward, I mean, we're in P8, we're still in the points nonetheless, so I mean, it's not the absolute end of the world. But after the safety car, I can't really say much happened. You can see that we're behind Milky, who also had pretty damn good pace on this track. But it was the simple fact that we just got caught up in a train the entire race. So myself and Milky end up catching J-Mick, who my teammate, pretty quickly. But the second we catch him, it's just, like I said, it's just a DRS train to the very end. So that was basically the end of the race. We end up finishing P7. We're in P7 right now. We do have a last lap incident that I'll let you guys listen in for, but yeah, just a bad day in the office. I think my saving grace was really that Azure DNF'd, and Total Carney ended up having a pretty bad race. So neither of my rivals scored points, but yeah, I'll let you guys go ahead and watch this.
Hunter, did I hit you? Did I hit you?
No.
Okay,
So yeah, you guys see how my race ended, finishing P7. As I said before, just a lot of unlucky things happened during the race. Some were our fault, some weren't, but hopefully better races are to come. We definitely got more videos to come. We're going to be streaming tomorrow, like I said, at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So make sure you guys tune in, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and have a wonderful day, y'all. Peace.